So the topic I want to talk about today is trauma. It's something that we shy away from as human beings. In fact, in our current society, if you kind of look at the consumer market, a majority of it is about comfort. A majority of what we buy, a majority of what we sell, and a majority of what we seek as human beings is comfort. Now, I want to thank everybody who reached out to me after my last video, because this is why I'm focusing on the topic of trauma. I had many people reach out and thank me for posting, and I appreciate that. And it means an incredible lot to me, truly. I also had a reaction from some people that I know in my network telling me that they're so sorry that I went through the things that I've gone through. I'm not. Am I sorry that they happened? Yes. Am I a little bit, did I go through outrage? And did it affect me in the moment? Yes. Do I want to go through those things again? No. Absolutely not. Am I sorry that I went through them? Am I sorry? Do I wish I didn't go through them? No. I would not be who I am right now in this moment if I did not. Am I happy that I went through them? No, it's different than that. Am I grateful for who I am? Yes. Yes, I am. Am I grateful for what I learned? Yes. Do I believe that at various points in my life that it benefited me to go through shocks, through trauma? Yes. And if we go all the way down to the cellular level, the metabolic function of our cells, they benefit from acute stress. They benefit from shocks. Why would we be any different? If you think about why people cold plunge, why people do the sauna, why you do high intensity interval training, HIIT workouts, why you do hyperbaric oxygen therapy, oxidation. It clears out the crap that grows. Senescent cells is hyperbarics. I think the same is true with sauna. Senescent cells are these zombie cells that exist in your body, and they just subsist and they grow and they live. And when they start reproducing, then that's cancer often. And so why is that important? Well, the cells that survive the shock in the organism, they're also more resilient. They reproduce better. Their metabolic process is smoother, and they're more adaptive, and the organism becomes more resilient. Why would this be any different than our psychology? Why would we think that our physical processes would be much different? How do you adapt? You need stress. You need a triggered acute stress event, and you adapt and you evolve. So you need trauma. And we all have traumas. The acute shocks are the ones that change us. That if we are resilient, and we adapt and learn, then we evolve and we grow. And obviously we live in this life, these lives, these complacent lives. Oftentimes we get stuck in these loops of complacency, and then we and the things that we build become similar to senescent cells, where they are not thriving anymore. I talked about this last time, this idea of thriving. So the shocks remind us to grow. And in the case of with my business and with me as a human being, things that are challenges are tough, but the outcome of that can be a much bigger upside. You tighten your operation in a business. So I talked about the human cells in acute stress. I've talked about me and my resilience. I'll go deeper into that. But in the business, why is it a well-known phenomenon that some of the best companies come out of down markets, come out of difficult economies? Well, they have to be scrappy. They have to be resilient. They have to adapt faster. They have to get leaner. They have to survive, to exist, to persist, and then to ultimately thrive. And that's like known. You have to get creative. You have to adapt. We grow. And with me, I've been through a lot of traumas in my life. I'm not going to talk about them all, but the theme is that after processing it, and you really, I really benefited. I really benefited from allowing myself to feel those things. But at the end of that, at the end of the processing, there's an acceptance, right? Where I then learn and I grow. And that feeling of being able to look into your past, analyze and index what you've been through, and love what you learned from it, no matter how hard it was at the time, is powerful. And so for me, I would say that I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't lean in to the traumas in my life. And here, obviously, not while they're going on. While they're going on, our goal is to correct them, to find a way out. That's that's adaptation. But the resilience piece comes from learning. When you learn and you can get skills from the traumas, then they don't happen again in the same way, typically. You adapt. You develop resolve and grit. You also know that there's another side, so that when the next one comes in, maybe it's a different one, maybe it's a harder one, you know that it will end and you keep going. But you only know that after facing it. And so to my network who reached out with so much support, I appreciate the support. I appreciate the empathy. Oh, that I appreciate. I appreciate. What I don't want is anyone to feel sorry, because these things are what make us humans strong. Now, at the same time, our goal should be to thrive. And so it's a balance. We shouldn't seek traumas. We shouldn't. I mean, seeking trauma, unless you're doing it in the acute, you can bake that into your life. Like I mentioned, sauna, cold plunge. I do the Wim Hof breathing method. That's now, I only just recently started that, but that's acute stress, right? You can bake it in methodically, intentionally, to improve your life and improve your resilience, your physical resilience, and therefore your autonomic nervous system and your stress response. But the more salient message should be, we also shouldn't, as a species, if we want to tap into this potential for adaptation and evolution and growth towards thriving in our new environment, it's a fine line between seeking comfort and seeking to thrive, complacency and happiness. It's a fine line. And the purpose of this video is to share my story that actually pretty much everything that I've been through that others would say, oh, I'm so sorry, I can take a valuable lesson out of it. I can take a valuable insight out of it. I can take strength from it and improve my life, or go and impact and make a change, or empathize with other people better that have been through similar things. And so the frame that I choose when surveying my life and the hard things that happen to me is one of gratitude that I am here where I am right now. And okay, what did I learn, and how do I not have that happen again? Even the things that were outside of my control. Can I better control my environment? Can I not repeat things? Can I take it as a learning, a cumulative learning, like with my mother? What did I learn from her mistakes? With my, I've been through some physical traumas. What does that say about our society, that these things happen so frequently? And can I improve it? Can I touch somebody by, can I influence the system at a macro level and correct, everything? I always think of how things scale. Cells function and organisms are the cumulative cellular process. Society functions. And then I often like to look at the nuclear family, smallest social engagement in society, as the scale point up. And I look at things like, okay, two parents typically raising a child, and there's this balance, and there are different roles. And you scale that out into society. You scale it at the Dunbar level, the 150 small community. You scale an interaction and engagement of communities into society. But it all starts at a root. And if you have a sick foundation, if you have a sick root in how these things function, you'll get a sick organism. Because these things scale. They build onto it. It's the same with my company, right? If you're using, if at the start, at the foundation of when biological data is first produced and processed, if there's bias, if there's process corruption and inefficiency, and it compounds. As the data grows, it just compounds. The output processes are bad. We get less cures and therapies. It's always the same. And you can find these foundational themes to make it function better. But sometimes it takes a shock to know that you need to look. And that's the acute stress. That's like with our body. These shocks. Oh, some of these cells can't handle the shock. Oh, they weren't good. Bye. Okay, the cells that are functioning the best handle the shock. Okay, grow. Build on those ones. Right? Now, I want to take a look at our society on this frame. And yeah, we're like the frog in boiling water. It's been incrementally temperature increasing, and suddenly it's boiling, and we're like, what do we do? Can we lean into some of these shocks and make these changes? Right? We have global warming. We have an increase in the incidence of autoimmune disease and chronic illness. Morbidity is increasing. And the mortality rate, actually lifespan is decreasing in America for the first time in, the century, I think, or something ridiculous like that. So, barring the Spanish flu. And it was doing that before COVID. COVID increased the rate. We have two frames we can take right now. We can freeze. It's an autonomic response to shock and stress and fear. Or we can adapt, get on the other side of it, take a deep breath, look at what's going on, and start taking actions, right? I think we are in, as a society, the equivalent of like a sympathetic nervous system response, where fight, flight, freeze, fawn, we're not collectively doing. We're fighting each other unnecessarily. We're freezing and ignoring the issues. None of those things are good. I mean, there are issues going on, and they need addressed, and we can team up and do it. So let's do it. And these are the types of lessons that we can take by observing the most granular processes that we can see unfolding very fast. So cellular process, and we can think like, okay, how does that lesson apply to us? We can look within our lives at the negative things that happen and choose to be like, okay, what did we learn and how do we prevent that? Rather than dwelling on it, we can take positive action and look at the future as if we look at the future as something that is not independent of our actions, if we look at the future as something that we can change, if we look at the future as something that we play a part in creating, that we're a co-creator with this future existence, and we take agency in that, then we can start to use these tools in our lives to make it better. And that's how I look at my traumas and why I would not change a single thing that has happened in my life. But I would strive to improve the future for others. And they'll have a different set of traumas. And they'll have a different set of lessons and learnings and environmental triggers that they get to adapt to, right? But we can learn from the ones that we've faced and grow and be that increased probability that our species survives, that there's a future. We can improve the likelihood that maybe there's this amazing future of abundance and there isn't as much trauma. And that's a great thing too, but it's not comfortable either. There's thriving, not complacency amid micro inflammation, which is like the way that I used to live. Right? I was just like, I would eat gluten and I just feel inflamed all the time and thought that was just normal until a shock happened. And I nearly went down into the pit of autoimmune disease. Right? When we're at that state where we're seeing the shocks, we're in the boiling water, and we can make changes. We can make changes in our individual niches, right? Like me with Generate and my goal to improve the ability to make use of research data, particularly genomic data, and unlock its predictive and true potential. We can make changes collectively simply by sharing and supporting each other. We can come together as a species right now, and we can make the world better right now because we have all these tools. And again, I said this in the last video. We now have access to the cumulative learning knowledge base of our ancestors through AI in a way that we never have before, instantaneously. We can use it like that. We can use it to improve the human experience and reap the rewards of thriving rather than settling into complacency. But the core thing that makes that possible is just here how you look at it. And so I use myself as an example, but I choose to look at the negative experiences in my life and the traumas as lessons, as learnings. And I choose to keep going and to improve the future that I can have. And then I keep that frame. And if you look at it in a long horizon, you don't look at this micro event, that doesn't have to be your reality forever, then suddenly those things were worth it. If you make it so. By virtue of continuing and succeeding and building, just think about that. You make it so. And so, yeah, trauma. Thank you all. And yeah, that aside, for those that did reach out and display empathy, I also do really appreciate it. I just wanted to leverage that and lean into that as this topic that is dear to me. And I once again, if this added value, please support it so I know. And it brings me joy. Right? It's meaningful to me. If you have a topic that you'd be curious if I know anything about, or you think I know something about, you want to hear more, let me know. I've had somebody ask me about my experience being a female entrepreneur, and I might do that next, but I will be doing that in the future. And I would love input, and I would love continued support. Thank you. Oh, and I'll be releasing an episode of the Gen Bio podcast as well, likely this weekend, where I talked to an incredible individual named Amy Thompson about her journey and her path building an application for women's health, which is something that is foundational. If we talk back about these foundations, it's foundational to humanity thriving on Earth, because it is the reproduction in our species. It's life. And so please look out for that. I'll be posting that on LinkedIn. And let me know if this spoke to anybody, if it spoke to you and you want to talk. You could probably read between the lines on some of the things I've said, and maybe you have similar traumas. I'm also always happy to help and talk people through those things and lend myself as somebody that can empathize without pity. Because the worst thing in those situations is, that. And so celebrate the learnings with somebody, help process the grief. If anybody has a need for that, I'm here. Thank you all.